This meeting to order. The time is 5:31 p.m. Roll call, Mr. Bailey. Here. Mrs. Dean. Here. Mrs. Martin. Here. Ms. Miller. Here. Mrs. Moores. Well, what? This is old. Mrs. Johnson. I'm like, wait. No, how about Mrs. Johnson? Yeah, you're fired. How about Mrs. Johnson? Mr. Osowski. Yep. The chair is here.
Sorry about that. I copied the right one everywhere but there.
Yeah, because you just copy and paste this one from year to year, right? Yeah. Yep. We've had that. We'll move on to President's remarks. As per usual, please place all cell phones on silent. I hope everybody is surviving this heat. And hopefully we can get this done relatively quickly and get everybody home. Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda of the June 23rd, 2025 special meeting as presented?
Motion.
Moved by Mr. Osowski, seconded by Mrs. Martin. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say yes. Yes. Opposed? Motion carries. You got to be a smidge faster on him next one. All right, call to the.
Next year we'll get you guys buzzers.
Yeah, there you go. The answer is. Call to the audience participation regarding agenda items. Hearing none, we will move on to communications received by the board secretary, Mrs. Martin. Okay, I'm sure we've all looked at this budget until our eyes are ready to fall out of our heads. Action items. Item A, special consideration, non-consent agenda items. Number 1, 2024-2025 final amended budget. Can I get a motion that the Board of Education, at the recommendation of Maria Gitzinger, Interim Chief Financial Officer, and Jason Witt, Superintendent, approve the 2024-2025 final amended budget as presented?
Motion.
Moved by Mrs. Martin. Is there support?
Support.
Seconded by Mr. Osowski. Is there any discussion? Okay. Well, this requires a roll call vote. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Osowski?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. Motion carries. All right. Number 2, the 2025-2026 projected budget. Can I get a motion that the Board of Education, at the recommendation of Maria Gissinger, Interim Chief Financial Officer, and Jason Witt, Superintendent, approve the 2025-2026 projected budget as presented? Moved by Mr. Bailey. Is there support?
Support.
Seconded by Mrs. Martin. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to go Mr. Bailey first.
So this projected budget, again, was consideration put into the upcoming tariffs that are coming down the tubes?
So we answered that question at the last meeting. We don't really buy a lot of things that we tariff related because our purchases are not, a lot of our purchases are coming from foreign countries.
So, that's right. But other people that do supply us do buy oil, gasoline, all the stuff, and we're not putting a cushion in there in anticipation of it. If we end up with extra money, that's great. But again, why set ourselves up for being blindsided?
So the supply budget is not a large chunk of the district's overall expenditures. I'm pulling that number up now. And if we happen to be confronted with rising costs, that's what a budget amendment mid-year is for. But I understand your point about planning for the future. Our total supply budget
projection.
and not for supplies.
I'll go with your projection.
Any further questions? Okay, Mrs. Martin.
We received the email from Mr. Witt, like kind of I'm sorry. We received the email from Mr. Witt, kind of relating to possible layoff the structural things. And I know it was dealing with the at-risk fund. What does the at-risk fund actually cover?
Are you talking as far as what we spend our at-risk money on?
Yes. Oh. Oh, sorry.
To answer it, but, I mean, our at-risk dollars are used for a variety of reasons, including covering, but as part of building this budget, we tried to push as many positions as possible. We wanted to maximize people over things, and so we tried to assign people who could legitimately be assigned to at-risk dollars to the at-risk funding that we have available to us.
And lastly, there's a social worker in there.
And do we, how much is that fund, for at-risk?
$2,209,901.
So right now we got a principal, alternative ed, a social worker, and what else was in there? Behavior specialist.
Now, within the at-risk allocation, just so you know, though, there's a certain percentage that does have to be spent on stuff.
When you say stuff, what do you mean by stuff?
Programs and equipment that qualify under the spending for at-risk dollars. Like each building is supposed to receive a certain percentage of the allocation based on their enrollment.
Okay.
It's through Title I, but it's technically called 31A.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions?
To the chair.
Mr. Osowski?
I have two questions regarding the budget. Security, we're going from $1 million down to 400,000 in 1 year. I was kind of questioning that one, and does that also include the police officer in that, or not?
We have no plans to reduce the school resource officer, and I actually believe that we talked about overall reducing school security by $300,000.
So are we keeping, I'm sorry, sir.
No, go ahead, I'm
So are we?
writing.
Are we keeping our current security company, like the people that's, was doing the security, are we keeping them?
Miles and I are meeting with the company tomorrow to talk about the allocation of dollars that we have to work with for the coming year. And then we're going to work with them to develop a plan to fit within that budget.
So the reason, another additional reason for the decline is in this year, we have carryover money in a 31AA grant, which is used for security that we won't have in 25, 26.
Yeah, but we spent almost $1.1 million. I guess, even though we had that money, I'm not sure $1.1 million was responsible. Here's what I'll say. I noticed this too, that we've reduced this by half, but I also noticed that we spent almost $1.1 million on security, which the last thing, I don't want to come off as saying that's not important. It is very important. We know that we live in a day and an age where that's probably our second highest priority, right? Behind making sure they get a good education. But I was a little shocked by I was shocked by both of these numbers, that it was over $1 million that we spent. I'm curious to why it got so high. And if we could still properly, I know you guys said you're going to meet tomorrow, maintain the level of security we have now with half of the budget.
Well, we will make sure we come up with a plan that meets the needs of our students and staff at each building, with the priority being on security during the school day, and we believe, based on some discussions, that is achievable within our budget.
Okay.
Now, with that said, as Maria stated, this is what, like, budget amendments may also be for.
Yeah.
And so as we fine tune things, if there's a significant variation from the original budget, that's something that would be noted in an amendment.
I'm also concerned about the speech and pathology and audiology. Last year, $520,000. This year, $45,000. That's like a tenth of what we spent last year. But I know we have to trim. I'm just kind of curious how we go from $520,000 to $45,000. That's a big difference.
I believe we moved at least 2 speech pathologists into a different fund.
Okay. Okay.
And then the other reduction came in the form of, we have had to contract staff for speech pathology.
Right.
And again, because what is outlined in that memo, we're looking at reductions across the board. So we're looking at reductions in stuff, but we're also working with all of our third-party contractors to reduce things as much as possible. And then we're also having some internal reductions that are necessary among staff.
So here's another question that comes into my head, specifically to speech pathology. I know that if the Head Start program refers a student to speech therapy, we provide that as the district. Do we ask them to offset that cost, the Head Start program?
No, that's not something that happens currently.
Okay.
But it can happen.
Well, I don't know, we can have those discussions about whether it can happen, but the bottom line is, I think we also might be in a child find situation there, where if the child is a student of ours, so the part of the
And
question
she
could
is.
be, no, but I'm just saying, part of the discussion could be to making sure that we're only providing those services for the students who we should be providing services for.
Okay, so for example.
Because there are non-residents that bring their students here for the Wayne Metro Head Start programming,
Right.
and we should not be covering supplemental services that those students may need. And I don't believe we are, but we will, as we have discussions about making sure we're tightening them up everywhere, that is one of the things we'll definitely look at.
Thank you.
Chair.
Mr. Bailey?
So what's really neat about economic downturns, or where you gotta cut things, you have an opportunity to see where money can be saved. You're forced into it. So the question comes, with these cutbacks, from the get-go, are we making sound decisions on how to spend this money? Or can we better spend those dollars by thinking it out in another way?
Well, that is those are things we're going to be looking at. So the key tonight is that we have an adopted budget.
Yeah.
But the work is not done. I can assure you that Maria, even today, was sitting in her office, and a portion of that time was spent with Tamron, where they were continuing to dig into the numbers. We're going to continue to dig into the numbers as an administrative team, and some of the things we are looking at is, are there different delivery models about how to deliver some of these services in a more cost-effective manner? And for the reasons that Mr. Bailey stated. And then we're also going to continue to explore opportunities. First of all, we're going to ultimately find out more information about the revenue situation with the state. That will eventually have an end to it. The sooner the better. And again, that's something that then would lead to a budget amendment based on where things settle that way. And over the course of the summer, we're also going to dig into potential other sources of funding that there might be that we can pursue. For example, we're already working to pursue some different grant funding that would potentially be available for us in the security realm to do some different things, and Mr. Tomasitis has been working on that. And we're going to continue to look at other grant opportunities to pursue where those are available. And Wayne Risa also has some funding things that are in flux. But we're responding to all the information as we get it and looking for how to best allocate those dollars that we do have. And that's something that will continue throughout the year.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Bailey?
so, Mr. Woods, you're addressing after the fact, so we're already in the situation, we have to do this stuff. What I'm saying is, and again, this is another example, and I've been here I don't know how many years. Are we doing actual due diligence up front where these same decisions could have been made without the iron being placed against our feet?
With regards to that, I'll give you an example. I mean, those discussions have been ongoing, but sometimes until you have the impetus, it doesn't get finalized. So I'll give you an example. We've been talking about the amount of students who receive speech services in the district for a while, and we've been exploring solutions there. And I know Student Services Department has been working with staff to, quite honestly, identify the amount of speech services that some students receive and whether that's both necessary at this point and effective, quite honestly. Because as students get to a certain age, the data will show you and research will show you that certain speech services no longer have really any notable effect. So I know, no, that is true.
No, I'm not debating your data, but at the same time, if you do an evaluation and that person can be in 12th grade, and if that person, based on that speech evaluation, if it says that speech therapy is needed, we cannot just be like, oh, well, you're in the 12th grade and you don't need speech therapy.
Okay, well, I don't think, with all due
that's
respect,
what he was
Ms.
saying.
Martin, I don't think that's what I said.
No, you said that based on research that once you get a certain age, that's where it may not be effective. And that's kind of may not be effective. You're right. And so that's why you know what I'm saying, was like, yeah, I get you, but yeah, that's
Okay, well,
when I'm
let me be
saying
clear on what I'm saying. If an IEP is set up for a student to receive certain services, we will honor the IEP.
right. Okay.
There's no question about that.
Thank you.
But there are processes in place, and that's why our IEP teams meet on a regular basis, and they should be considering all services that students receive on an annual basis. And it shouldn't just be the case that a student comes in with an IEP in kindergarten, and that IEP potentially remains the same all the way through 12th grade.
That's true. That's why.
And all I'm saying is, we're pushing our teams to
Truly.
take those processes seriously
Absolutely.
and work with the families through the IEP process as is necessary to provide the services that are necessary for all students.
Absolutely.
Okay.
To the chair,
Mr. Bailey?
so with that conversation, we look at the IEP and may or may not do things. are we making decisions with that same line of thinking, the same logic? Are we making decisions at the expense of the kids? In terms of, if the IP doesn't say that, but they need it, but we can save money and such, are we gonna provide that?
Of course we are.
Well,
It's a
if,
given, yes.
but Mr. Bailey, if a student needs certain services, then those will be reflected in the student's IEP. And we're committed to doing
I don't
that.
think there's
Right, but
anybody,
if we need to have those services there,
there's,
is there an impetus to provide those services or save money?
it's to provide the
The
services. I don't think
students
there's,
always come first.
I don't think there's anybody in this room who would say, you can't have that service because we don't have the money for it. That's not what they're saying at all. It's been my understanding for a long time, sometimes we almost over-provide for these kids, or we misdiagnose it, and I know at one point we had like this crazy number of students with interventions, and it was because people didn't want to really look and see what the problem was. And so their answer was, well, let's just get them interventions. And maybe the problem wasn't that they needed speech therapy. It was that maybe the problem was that nobody in their life had ever actually spoken to them in complete sentences and corrected their speech like a parent would do, right? We know that happens. That's not a child needing speech therapy. That's a child needing to hear the adults around them who are responsible for them teach them how to say the word strawberry. So we had a lot of that in the past of just misuse of those funds, but there's nobody here that would say, we're not going to provide that because we don't have the money. I think we would find the money somewhere to provide that. I've never, in my experience as a parent and a board member, seen us say we're not providing services. We've cut money every other place before we cut money that affects kids. And I've been here since the days we're $5 million in deficit, and our kids were always the most important forethought in our minds as a district.
But to just briefly answer your question, we are looking at the most cost-effective way to provide those services. And while we have done that in the past, we probably have not done that as diligently as we are now.
And that's what's unfathomable for me.
Okay, that's fair.
From the get-go, you think we'd be doing that. Why is it that we have to have spurs in us before we start thinking?
Well, because, Mr. Bailey, change is not easy in some cases. And I'll just say that. And I can tell you, Mr. Bailey, I've had these discussions about trying to change some things, and I've been told we have to go slow to go fast.
Yeah.
And when your CFO is telling you that you have a fund balance of X,
And it's really.
sometimes you don't push back on some things as quickly as you possibly would if you knew the actual reality of the financial situation.
Right.
This is not a CFO problem. This is a cultural problem within the organization.
Okay, thank
So
you.
this is not unique.
Thank you.
Okay. So let's bring these questions back specific to the budget.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Martin.
As it relates to the budget, when we talk about budget amendment, when we make a budget amendment, how can that, okay, I guess, do we have money to where we can make a budget amendment if need be?
Well, it doesn't necessarily mean your spending's gonna go up, it might be going down.
And technically, according to Michigan state law, if we overspend or underspend by even $1, we should amend the budget. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's why amended. Mr. Osowski, I think, is next. If you're good, if you're good, Mrs. Martin. Okay.
Second question, this is just generic athletics. That number, does that include all salaries?
In the athletic department.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because the last number we got wasn't with all the salaries. Because there's some that get teachers, they work in a district, and they're third parties.
My understanding is the budget number that's reflected there includes both the non-staff coaches who are paid on a contract basis through EduStaff and also the in-district staff who are paid as coaches, and also the compensation for our athletic director.
Okay, I just want to make sure that that's the all-inclusive number.
Okay, is everybody good? All right, this requires a roll call vote. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Mrs. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Osowski?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion carries. Number 3, state aid note borrowing resolution. Can I get a motion that the Board of Education, at the recommendation of Maria Gissinger, interim chief financial officer, and Jason Witt, superintendent, approve the state aid note borrowing resolution authorizing August 2025 borrowing through the Michigan Finance Authority in the amount not to exceed $8 million as presented? We cannot have discussion without a motion.
So moved.
Mr. Bailey, moved by Mr. Bailey, seconded by Mrs. Johnson. Is there any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Bailey?
what's that title? The state note sand borrowing resolution, sand meaning without?
State aid note.
Right,
It's the
thank you.
acronym, yeah.
Chair.
Mrs. Martin?
So, how much money did we borrow up for the amount of the summertime? It was like about 5 million to cover the summer months.
It was 4.
4.
And we have to pay that back?
And that will be
Quickly.
paid back in August
Okay.
So-
Now,
with the interest,
with the 58, I think it was like.
Yeah.
56, something like that.
Yeah.
Now, what is this $8 million for?
So it is to meet the cash flow needs of the district throughout the school year from August 20th of 25 to August 20th of 26. When I take this budget that you just approved and take these costs and lay it out on a timeline as far as when these costs will be incurred, you'll be experiencing some cash flow deficits. Your biggest deficit is in January, and so this is an estimate of enough to get us through to the next year. And I also want to add my favorite caveat that I'm day 12 now. I guess last time was 12, I must be 19 now.
Woo-hoo.
Best numbers that I'm able to surmise from my time I've had to review your information.
So, the budget we just approved does not include this $8 million though.
And it wouldn't, because it's a balance sheet issue. So this is your revenues and your expenditures. We don't record a borrowing as a revenue or paying it back as an expenditure of the district. It would be a wash. It's a balance sheet game. We take the cash and record the loan, and then when we pay it back, we reduce the loan and reduce your cash. So it's a balance sheet game. It doesn't hit your income statement.
But I guess, yes, I heard you, but for my brain, I'm sorry.
Sounds like an accounting thing that we, it's
To
an
make
accounting
it
thing.
simple as possible for me, as of right now, though, our budget, we did not include this $8 million.
Nor would you.
Nor would us.
It's not in there, nor would you.
Oh, no, because we haven't voted on it, and it's not, it's like, it's,
It'll
So
never
even
come
if-
in there.
Let's just say it was in there, it'd be 8 million in and 8 million out, right? So it would net to 0. Because you have to record the revenue coming in, then also record paying it back.
okay, so did you bank on this, on us approving this $8 million when you made the budget?
The whole district's riding on it.
So basically, you made the budget based on this.
I made the application based on the budget.
This district will not stay open without this $8 million.
And then moved on to
We won't be able to
state
make
aid
payroll.
application.
And what's the interest rate on this $8 million?
So we won't know until we get into the state aid note pool. So the last note that you borrowed, the interest rate was 4.88%. You were out in the open market asking for banks to help you, partner with you to give you a loan. The state aid note program, now we're partnering with the state. We're in with every other school district that borrows from the state. It goes from August to August. And because it's a pool, we will hopefully get a great interest rate, maybe better than what we can get in the open market. And so we should expect a lower interest rate.
So why is this needed? I thought we were only like maybe $5 million kind of short. I mean, from the 24-25 school year, I thought that it was like $5 million or so.
Could you explain how that this is how the school funding works and when we receive funding in certain months and what months we don't receive funding to
Sure.
address that?
So the district, every district in the state only gets 11 state aid payments, not 12. So the state's fiscal year runs October 1 to September 30. Our fiscal year runs July to June. So they start our state aid funding in October when our district is well underway, right? School is well underway on October 20th when we receive our first state aid payment. We also are not receiving a state aid payment in September. So you would think September would be our low cash flow, but this district has 100% summer tax collection. So our summer taxes get us through. And as I map out your expenditures, your low point is in January. January happens to be a month where you have 3 payrolls as well. So it would make sense that January would be your low cash point.
So
And we also only receive state aid in the months we receive it. We don't receive it until usually the 20th
It's the 20th of each month.
of each month. So like, for example, to draw like a correlation, if you're paid on a bi-weekly basis, and then you set up your household budget based on the receipt of that money, imagine your ability to potentially account for those same bills and expenses if you only receive pay towards the end of the month.
If you
Oh,
fall down
yeah,
and
I
break your
definitely-
arm,
yeah,
you have to.
And I'm just trying to draw the comparison.
No, that's good. I got that. Now, like, why we didn't have to do this before?
Okay, so let
Because
me
we had enough
address
money in the
this,
bank.
address this issue as well. I don't want to give you the impression that we're digging ourselves deeper into a hole, and I think that's kind of where your thought process might be. You have a balanced budget for 25-26, right? When you look at what we're anticipating, and again, based on my observations, you're planning on having a balanced budget. And so it's not as if you're spending $8 million more in 25-26 than you're taking in. Okay, so we can have a level of comfort that we're not making our financial position weaker as we're going through the next school year. The reason for the borrowing, now remember, the whole district is running on about $40 million. So as the fund balance gets smaller, you have less cash reserves to weather the cash flow. So as your expenditures and revenue aren't timed perfectly, you have a cash flow shortfall. So this loan is just plugging the hole until you cross the finish line on June 30 of 25, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you.
Can I ask a favor? If you're not speaking, could you mute your microphone just because we're getting a lot of
It's really
feedback?
bad.
It is,
I'm
it's-
sorry.
I think
Thanks.
it's weird. So we say not to exceed $8 million. So that tells me that we don't really know how much we need. And so my second question is, well, it's around, it says not to exceed $8 million. Do we anticipate needing the full $8 million? And is it a situation where we can say we need 5 million and then go back later and say we need the other 3?
Unfortunately,
So
no.
we have to know.
You get one shot at it.
Okay,
And because they size their pool and then
Right.
hence price it with the interest rate that we were just discussing. The superintendent and I had this conversation.
okay,
To get in, so when you have an off-cycle borrowing, like what this school has experienced, it causes the financial markets to have reason for concern.
absolutely.
And so let's just say our numbers aren't turning out the way they should. They already know that we're exhibiting signs of fiscal distress because we had an off-cycle borrowing. And then if we don't borrow enough to make it through, we'd be back in the same boat with another emergency borrowing. So we're signaling to the financial markets, you have an issue here, and we continue to have an issue. So I didn't want to do that. I think it's well worth it. Like, this is one thing that we don't want to cut ourselves short
Right.
on. We need to be able to make payroll. We need to be able to systematically and smoothly operate the district without cash flow hiccups, if you will. And this number is a great estimate of what I think that we are going to need with a cushion to get through to the next borrowing. It will also buy me time to get a better grip on the district's finances as well.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? All right, hearing none, roll call. Mr. Bailey?
Yes.
Mrs. Dean? Mrs. Johnson? Mrs. Martin?
Yes.
Ms. Miller? Mr. Osowski?
Yes.
Chair votes yes. Motion carries. It is hard. Yep. It is hard. All right, item number 4, portrait of a graduate. Can I get a motion that the Board of Education, at the recommendation of Jason Witt, Superintendent, approve the portrait of a graduate as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Martin, seconded by Mr. Osowski. Is there any discussion?
The chair.
Mr. Bailey?
So with the, so this is for final approval, is that correct, Mr. Witt?
That's the recommendation.
So we're not going out for more public input, right?
The recommendation is for adoption of what's presented at this time.
Okay.
Is there any further discussion?
Yes, quick question. So I guess in my head, I was thinking that we was gonna get more than just these bullet points. Is this all we have? I
Whole
thought it was.
presentation, and last week there was a whole thick
It was,
packet.
maybe I missed, because even when I was looking at that presentation, maybe I missed it.
Okay, can
I'll
I
go back.
speak to that? So, these are the key characteristics. Now, in that presentation, I talked about the work that lies ahead.
Right, I remember that.
The work that lies ahead would be then under these categories. There'll be more collective work and efforts to build out what each of these characteristics look like at various grade levels.
Okay.
So this is like the starting point overview, highest level document. And within this, there will be more work that takes place to further develop each of these areas. And there's a lot of different things that can be done. I'll just give you an example, and I'd like to get to this point, but I will admit we're not at this point yet. But one of the things that I hope to accomplish through the additional work is there are districts right now, and we've been exposed to this through our involvement with the Future of Learning Council, and also through the connection that we now have through Michigan Virtual, through the Fraser superintendent, who came here, and they're in this area where ideally districts are starting to form graduation transcripts, okay, if you can picture it, that not only include the academic portion, but they actually like award these badges, for example, to students, and they actually help the students develop a portfolio of how they've developed these skills over the year, so that then alongside their academic transcripts, they would have like a transcript that also shows these type of things and what they've participated in as a student to build these characteristics. And that's like a next level thing, but it's something that we want to build towards. And so this really is that high level overview document, and there's a lot of work that lies ahead. Part of that will be aligning this then with our work through a strategic plan. But there's a bunch of different directions we can take this once we have the base in place.
Okay, so thank you for that. Because I was like, wait, how much did we spend? And then so that's what I was like, okay, what's happening? And then so how long will it take to like build out this part before going into the strategic plan?
I think two things can happen simultaneously. I believe that once we set a foundation with the board on a strategic planning process, that we can work with this document as is, and simultaneously, work can take place in other groups to build out that other information that has greater level details, whether it's at the building level or grade level and all those things. I mean, I'll give you an example. I've already thought about one activity that I'm familiar with, and I haven't discussed this yet with folks or our student services person in particular. But for example, when it comes to empathy, I have experience in a prior district, and I love this activity they did. And I think it would be fantastic to talk to them about how they did it. They're a larger district than us, but I can see this activity translating. And one of the things they do is they allow certain grade levels to take place, I guess, in, for lack of a better term, what they maybe call like I don't want to misuse the term, so I don't know exactly what they talk about it. But for example, what they do is they set up an experience, hands-on experience for students to go through certain activities as if they didn't have sight or they couldn't hear.
Experience what it's like to have a disability.
And so they learn, they're given an activity day and they set it up like at a central location. They bring the students in, and this would probably only start out one grade level at a time, maybe. We would choose to pilot it, like for example. But then those students are put through some different activities to experience what it's like to not be able to hear, what it's like to not be able to see, what it's like to be in a wheelchair, what it's like to potentially have one arm and not two, and kind of experience what living with those type of conditions are. And that's something that I clearly feel would be something that would build empathy. And it would be like a hands-on example of something that, let's say we started that with, we want all our third and fourth graders to have that activity. Well, that would be an activity that those students who then complete that activity would earn on that document I talked about, on their transcript. It would show that they earned an empathy badge, and it would describe, at least generally, the nature of the activity that they participated in to earn that badge. And so that's just a small example of the things we can do with regards to this area. One of the things, I mean, there's some other things we're already doing that could be pushed under some of these umbrellas too. The one we piloted this year that immediately comes to mind is we did a financial literacy experience, hands-on, that Mr. Taylor helped spearhead and get off the ground. And that's another experience that could probably fall under one of these activities. And so all the students that participate in that opportunity, again, would be given an opportunity to earn something that ends up ultimately on a transcript or some sort of record that, again, accompanies them when they're done here. And honestly, as more and more districts develop those type of transcripts, it's potentially something that colleges and certain schools are starting to look at almost as much as the academic transcripts.
Absolutely. I think about personal curriculum.
I don't have a count, Mr. Bailey.
So you're talking about it'd be nice to have empathy and do this and do that. Again, it puts me back to the same situation. Enough school districts out.
Mr. Bailey, one of the main reasons we participate in the Future of Learning Council is to be exposed to things like this and have opportunities to learn from those districts. And that's what we're doing.
But you don't know the number of those districts.
I don't know how many specific districts have developed to the point of having a portfolio or transcript for their students upon graduation. No, I don't have that number. And I don't know who really maintains that data.
So we're essentially blazing new ground probably, right?
No, like I said, there are a number of districts that are doing something like this and are at various stages within doing something like this. And we're part of the conversation so we can learn from those districts and share even our own experiences with those districts.
Right, but being data-based, you think we'd have that information up front to see how the success is going? And we don't do it. Again, through this conversation at this meeting, it's the same thing. How can we save money ahead of time before we have to do this? How can we provide best services up front before somebody just coming up with an idea? Wouldn't this be nice?
To the chair. From my understanding and from what I'm seeing, this side of a portrait of a graduate would be heavily based on the social and emotional learning of a student, on top of other things, but a lot of that would be social emotional learning, which we already have a program within our school district that I'm sure they're not just making up stuff to do for social emotional learning. There are many curriculums, and I'm sure that we have one that we follow within our district that would help guide and have evidence-based results from doing X, Y, and Z. And if we don't use ours, I'm sure there are other evidence-based curriculums or activities and examples out there that we could use in order to teach resilience, to teach empathy, and have different opportunities for the students that would have that data-driven results for us to view. But as far as the other side of how many schools, I'm not sure, but I feel like for activities and how we're going to create this portrait of a graduate, there are curriculums that are in place that are evidence-based that schools use, including ours.
Hearing none. So roll call, Mr. Bailey.
No. We didn't have enough public input into this.
Thank you. Mrs. Dean.
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson.
Yes.
Mrs. Martin.
Yes.
Ms. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Osowski. The chair votes yes. Motion carries 6-1. Call to the audience, public participation regarding non-agenda items. Y'all don't get any time, no. Moving on, Board of Education communication and discussion. Before y'all leave, we're passing this around. So just make sure you sign or fill out your sizes here. I'm gonna put it right here. And then Mrs. Martin, don't leave without signing this bond information. And I think that's all I had. Mr. Terry needs signatures from Ms. Martin. Okay. Mr. Osowski, any?
I just want to say it was a beautiful golf outing yesterday. Nice to see mix it up around the district. And it was a lot of more younger alumni versus the older alumni.
Nice, nice. Mrs. Martin, anything you want to add?
Stay hydrated.
Yeah. Ms. Miller? Okay, the chair has nothing. Mrs. Dean? I have nothing. Mrs. Johnson? Sorry.
Nothing for me.
Mr. Bailey?
The chair. So, for the evaluation, we were presented with a paper showing how we've improved within the school district, where we stand. Did you, Ms. Crenshaw, provide those calculations? Is there any chance you can show me how you calculated those?
I use a spreadsheet that we've used for the last probably 10 years for this Microsoft Creator.
Right, so could you show me how you did that?
Sure.
For both last year, this year?
Yes.
Also, there's a philosophical belief, interpretation of the law, and our interpretation of the responsibility of the board between myself and my associates. So what I'm seeing through the discussions of the last meeting and this meeting, that the questions about the audits that were done, and they really don't apply, they didn't look at, in certain areas. What I'd like to do is advocate for the idea of a forensic audit, so that we can make sure where we're gonna be starting out is somewhere that we can say that we've done this, that everything's good, there's no problem.
Mr. Bailey, did we receive the forensic budget that was presented in a nice binder? Was that or no?
That's
No,
our audit from our auditor. That's just it's a regular audit. I believe a forensic audit goes deeper. But
That audit does go pretty deep,
Yeah.
to be fair.
It's
Um,
nice.
respectfully, we just sat here and talked about the need to not spend money, not take money from our students. And that audit does go pretty deep. And while I am concerned about what the actual numbers are, I just don't feel like at this point we should spend additional money on something that doesn't benefit our students. That's just my opinion.
So to the chair,
Yes.
that's fine. And also what I'd like to do is, I'm willing to listen ahead of time in terms of the response, how this would affect what's going forward, right? In terms of floating the loan and whatever. But I looked up the definition of forensic audit, and I also noticed that other school district, Cruz Giannis or something like that?
Let's
Right, a trustee had a question about it, came forward, and questioned about having an audit done. Because I have a responsibility here, I know it, I read it, y'all have it, but we have our own interpretation of what that responsibility is. So I'm willing to do the same thing as this other trustee did, in terms of asking for the audit through the media.
Seriously? You would seriously throw us under the bus to the media after all the crap and trouble you have started in this district and accused us of doing? You would then throw us under the bus to the media? Mr. Bailey, do not believe, here's what I'll promise you. I will bring a resolution to the board in July, and we will let the board speak. And if it is the will of this board to do that, then we will do it. If it is not the will of this board, then I think you need to accept that. Just like we have to accept things that we don't agree on. But your shit stirring has to stop. It just has to stop. I'm tired of it.
Maria, do you have any information on how much an audit?
So if you don't mind, I'd speak to that. So we do have an annual audit. It is fairly expensive. I mean, it's in line with other school district audits, but the purpose of your annual audit, I think, is achieving the goal that you desire, which is
they determined that our numbers our financial statements are not materially misstated. And this district has had a clean audit every single year. The focus of a forensic audit is to determine if there is any fraud present. It's extremely expensive. I'm just off the cuff, I want to say $300,000. I'm not sensing that there is any fraud here in this district. If I sensed that, I would entertain that, but I'm not sensing that that is an issue. It's more of just lack of technical expertise, if you will. And so I understand your point when you say, gosh, the auditors never picked up on this. When they get here in July and August, they go backwards and audit the 24-25 school year. So the troubles that the district is experiencing occurred in this school year. It will be addressed in your next audit.
And I would just echo Maria's comments. If I had any question at all whether this outcome where we're at now was based on fraud versus technical experience or bad accounting by an individual who's no longer here, I would be more apt to at least entertain a forensic audit that would be very expensive and time-consuming. I don't suspect there was any fraud. And again, I believe it was just bad accounting, and I believe, as Marie stated, that some of these things will turn up on our, will be noted on our audit. That is, while it's a general school audit, trust me, they're here for a long time digging into a lot of information all summer long and into the fall.
To the chair. So I sat at last meeting, and several times it was said that the audits that are done do not cover these particular areas, this area, this area, this area.
I don't believe that
The
was said.
definition that I looked up in terms of the forensic audit, part of it was fraud, if that was the case, but also part of it was for internal controls, external controls, all these things. Now, again, what I'm seeing is not a case of fraud, but organizational culture for this to be allowed in the first place. Now, I've got a responsibility, and I keep telling this to you, to the people that elected me. Y'all have it the same too, but it's our interpretation of how far that responsibility goes. So for us to sit here and continue to ask money from the public, and we come up with excuses that, yes, we had these audits right along, nothing showed, and then another sentence, it's, well, these audits don't look into this. I see that there's too much variability there for that responsibility. So, what I'm telling you up front is this is the option I'm looking at. I'm telling you in advance so that you're not blindsided, but also to let you know I'm interested in finding out the impact of it, because yes, you're asking for a loan.
I'm gonna lose mine. Oh.
So these are considerations I want to look at.
So let's just talk through that a little bit. If you're not suspecting that this is a fraudulent situation, then you wouldn't ask for a forensic audit, because that is the scope of the audit, is to look for fraudulent activity. And in this day and age, my analogy is committing fraud and thinking you can get away with it is like murdering somebody and thinking you can hide the body in this era of DNA. It is extremely unlikely the district is in this situation. It's practically impossible. So a forensic audit is beyond the scope of anything this district would need. Your annual financial audit is very thorough, and it's thorough enough that the board can rely on the audit, the numbers that are in the audit, and the auditing procedures that are done by your current financial auditors for the purposes of determining the financial position of the district. Furthermore, if you do as you suggest, the reputation of the district is harmed. And do you really want that? And then pretty soon, you know, we work in a school of choice environment. Parents could choose to not send their students to our district for things that are, there's no validity, in my opinion, there. And I would really caution that path for that reason.
I agree. Life's a bitch. Decisions are a problem. I understand that. That's why I'm asking this. I'm above board. I'm looking for the decisions. But again, I have to walk around in this skin. I've got a responsibility to these people. Keep asking them for money. And then,
But do you suspect that it's a fraudulent situation?
again, that's not the
That's a yes or
definition
no
I look
question.
at.
It's a yes or no question.
Internal controls, external controls. The culture got us to this point.
And Mr. Bailey, with respect to that, first of all, I think based on the information that was presented at the board meeting, you can see the level of detail to which Ms. Gistinger has put together both the final amended budget in much greater detail than this board has ever seen it before, the budget forecast for 25, 26, and I can tell you that that has now become the expected standard. And you have the accounting codes accompanying everything. And I can tell you that when we get to the point where we do search for a new CFO, that that type of reporting out to the board and other internal controls that I know Maria will help us put in place in the time that she's here will become the expectation within the district. So all I'm saying there is I believe we can accomplish the internal controls that you're looking for and the more detailed reporting. I think you've already started to see it without requiring a $300,000 plus forensic audit.
And
And
Mr.
then-
Bailey, excuse me,
sorry.
you're saying you have to walk around in your skin. $300,000 would be 3 to 4 of our educators in this district responsible for educating our students. Can you walk around in that skin?
And,
$40 million
and can you walk around in your skin? You know, can you walk in your skin where you, Mr. Bailey, have brought a frivolous lawsuit against this board, against this administration, and against this district that is costing us money, and you talk about you have to be responsible and walk around in your skin? I don't know how you sleep at night. And you do what you have to do, and you can bet your bottom dollar, and you can tell your slimy attorney, I said this, that I'll do what I have to do. This meeting is adjourned. Excuse me?